All right, it's great to be back this week to talk again about the very fundamental issues that are affecting South Africa. And this week, I'm very much interested in exploring a crime in South Africa. Crime or criminality is one of the things that I find very concerning. It concerns me greatly, the levels of crime, especially violent crime. So, it's something that really troubles me in South Africa. And today I want to explore this matter with Gideon Joubert. Gideon Joubert, how are you, sir?
I'm great at yourself, Phumlani, and thank you for having me here. It's
Yeah.
always an honor to speak to people who take these ideas and these concepts seriously, as well as these classical liberal ideas
Mm.
that tie into them seriously. So, thank you. It's awesome to be here.
Yeah. Did I pronounce your surname right? It's Joubert, right? In French, Joubert.
That's it. It's spot on, 100%.
Awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Gideon, I've known you for a while, though we have not met in person before. And even now, we're not meeting in person, but we are seeing each other. But I mean, you are doing a lot of work around self-defense, around guns, firearms, and all of that. But you are the best person to tell us what exactly do you do?
So it's a bit of everything. I've been involved in firearm ownership rights advocacy since about 2012. I have recently started formal instruction in pertaining to firearm training as well as self-defense training as of last year, end of last year. And that's been actually something that's grown and gotten quite busy as of the last 6, 7 months. I am keeping running around with my hair on fire because there seems to be quite a bit of demand for it. And I also do private security consulting as well. So there's a lot of different things going on, but they're all tied together to the central theme. And if I could call the central theme, I'd call it individual resilience, personal safety, and essentially encouraging people to be active and enthusiastic participants in their own rescue. That's one way to maybe put it.
Mm-hmm. But why do you think that is necessary? I mean, why do you think what you are doing is important?
So it's important. I'm going to give you my propaganda slogan, and then I'll explain to you what it means. And there's a whole bunch of us that have always been saying, you are always the first responder to your personal emergency. Nobody is coming to save you, and you need to be prepared to deal with whatever happens to you on the scene by having the correct mindset, the correct skills, and the correct tools to do the job. And that what you are doing under those circumstances, in those seconds or minutes, can mean literally the difference between life and death. And why I'm saying that every single person out there is their own first responder. The reason I'm saying that is because no matter how effective your policing system is, or your emergency medical services response system is, or your private security system is, none of those people are capable of being your chaperone, being your personal private bodyguard attached to your body 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. At some point, generally, when those elements, those assets are not around, if something goes wrong, the first person it's going to happen to is you, and the first person that can do something about it equally also is you. And everyone else will only get there after the fact. And maybe if you survive the event, help you pick up the pieces, or otherwise it won't make any difference to you because you'll be dead. My mission is to encourage people to start taking this stuff seriously, and then to assist them in equipping themselves adequately in order to be very effective when there is a life-threatening crisis, and being very effective in saving their own lives, or perhaps the lives of other people.
Yeah. Now, let's come to the issue of crime in South Africa. That is very much shocking. I'm reading here from last week, the crime statistics were released, and this was for July to September this year. And murders and rapes, they increased compared to the second quarter of the previous financial year. The murder of all children increased as well. Right now, we are at I think it's close to 68 people murdered per day, which has increased. And that is very disturbing. The number of people who lose their lives in South Africa. What is going on here, Gideon? Why do we have this shocking violent crime? Even the minister says we are a violent society, even by global standards, Gideon. By global standards, South Africa is the violent crime levels. They are terrifying. What's going on?
So you're absolutely correct in saying at global standards, we are incredibly violent. I mean, we've always been in the top 10.
And remember, Gideon, we are a non-war. What is it? We are a non-war zone country. This is not a war zone. So that factor is very important. Yeah,
that's it. In fact, we have a higher homicide rate than actual war zones, and we have for some time. We've always been in the top 10 of highest intentional homicide rates in the world. We were, up until recently, in 6th place, and we were the second highest homicide rate among countries with populations greater than 10 million. So that is a significant thing. I mean, we do have a murder problem. The fact that we were already that high and we saw a 20% increase is a very significant indicator. Our rape rate, our rates of sexual violence are off the charts. We're seeing a high incidence of kidnappings and the ransoming of kidnapped individuals occurring. There's all sorts of stuff that ties in with this. I can tell you about the fact that we have ineffective, broken policing. We have a highly ineffective criminal justice system. We have low levels of social and societal trust. We have a terrible economic situation and have had it for quite some time. I can summarize all of those components into one thing. And the reason why our rates of violence and violent crime are so high is because it's very cheap. There are no meaningful consequences for a criminal that chooses to be a violent predator. I mean, our conviction rate on homicide is pathetic. It's sitting at, I think, only 15% of all murderers are convicted. The other, 85% get away with it. With rape, it's even worse. I think only 9 or 8% of all rape cases or sexual assault cases end in successful conviction. So the criminal justice system is not implementing meaningful consequences for these people. We also have a very, very low rate of civilian firearm ownership in South Africa. I think we're 84th or 85th globally with the amount of guns in private hands per 100 people we have. I mean, we have fewer guns per 100 people in this country than Australia, New Zealand, Switzerland, Bulgaria, Italy, Germany, France, Sweden, Denmark, Iceland, Canada. There's a long list. I mean, there's 84, 85 other countries above us on the list that own more guns per 100 citizens than we do. We're also not a society that is at present taking ownership of the space we inhabit, and we leave a vacuum. And when we leave that vacuum because we're not owning our space, whether it's the neighborhood we live in or whether it's the area in which we conduct business, that vacuum is likely going to be filled by criminals because there's no one pushing back. There's no one questioning their presence. There's no one reporting it. There's no one taking note and letting them know that they are being observed and watched and that there may be consequences for them trying to perpetrate crime in that area. So it's a very simple reason in the fact that crime and violence is high because they're getting away with it. They know their chances of encountering a disarmed, defenseless victim is very high because so many people have not taken measures to be able to protect themselves. So there is no opportunity cost for being a violent criminal. It's very low, and the reward is really high. That is a fixable problem, though. But I'm sure we're going to get into the solution for it. Still in this chat.
You know, I mean, there are many incidents, man. Incidents that I hear about that are just terrifying and chilling. You know, in March, Gideon, here in Soweto, my uncle was murdered, cold blood, man. And we don't know. Maybe he knew something we never knew, but it was terrible. With people watching, Gideon, with people watching. He was murdered, complete execution, bullets in the head. And that's very shocking. And a few weeks
It
back,
is shocking.
it's terrifying, man. Before I got to a few weeks back, a few years back, here in Alexandra, just not far away from me, what happened was that this man, apparently he was running away from a few guys who had stabbed him, right? He already had wounds in his body. So he was running away from them. He enters a community clinic. He enters a community clinic trying to seek help. He's already bleeding. These four guys, about 4 or 5, they are hunting down on him, running after him with knives. He gets into the clinic. The nurses attend to him. They put him on the bed. They try to assist him. Guess what these guys who are chasing him do? They walk in, straight into the clinic. They go straight to the bed. They finish him off with everyone, a grisly murder, with everyone watching, Gideon. The nurses watching, the patients watching, right? Blood flowing, something very barbaric that they did in front of everyone watching. They don't care, Gideon. They don't give a damn that people are watching this. And I'm trying to say to you, it is partly, I believe, related to your point that there is no, people aren't held accountable for this at all.
There's no cost for doing it. And the only reasonable solution here is, we can appeal to high authority figures. We can appeal to the president and his office until we're blue in the face. We've seen, as an example of that, we have seen multiple organizations do persistent, ceaseless appeals to the president's office to address the issue of farm murders in South Africa. The situation has only gotten worse. The president has done nothing. And the same can be said for numerous other issues. We know that policing in Khayelitsha, for example, is shocking. It's non-existent. The residents there live in fear every single day because there is no policing service performing those tasks and duties as per the constitutional mandate of the SAPS in Khayelitsha. No one seems to care. So the politicians don't care. The police officials don't care. The only people that do care are the citizens affected. And what you should do is invest in two things. Firstly, invest in your own resilience and the resilience of your family. And when I'm saying resilience, I mean equipping yourself with the most important thing always is mindset. I'm going to talk to you about mindset skills and equipment. And the second thing is invest with like-minded people in your community, in community structures, for the sole purpose of improving safety and security in your community. And those structures are owned by you and your fellow residents or citizens. And that is your initiative, because that will make a difference. I've seen in actual real life examples of where these elements are implemented, where the people take the time and the effort and they implement them and they maintain them and they expand them. They can be highly effective mechanisms through which to drive crime and violence out of your area and keep it out. And when you encounter it in your area, to respond to it effectively and meaningfully. And it starts with a mindset change. And a mindset change is, I encourage people to develop something called a combative mindset. And I call it combative for a very good reason. It's not my name. It was a gentleman called Dave Spalding, I believe, came up with it first in the USA. And he said a combative mindset is purely having the will to prevail over your circumstances at all costs. Understanding that your life and the lives of the people you care about are worth saving, that your primary goal every single day is to get home to your house or to your loved ones alive in one piece, and be willing to do whatever it takes to ensure that that goal is achieved. And then you can expand upon that mindset into other areas as well, because as soon as you have a combative mindset, it also talks about being committed to making safe your area where you stay, or the areas of importance to you, and assisting others in cultivating that mindset. So the first thing you need to have is have the willpower to take command of your own destiny, and to refuse to be an unwilling victim, or rather a willing victim. It is to be, as I said in the beginning of this discussion, be an enthusiastic and active participant in your own rescue. And those words are exactly what they mean. And once you've cultivated that mindset, it's a process of cultivating it. And you can also do it through getting the correct training, because as you train skills, whether it is self-defense, whether it is combatives with firearms or knives, whether it is basic trauma medical training as to how to stop an arterial bleed or pack a wound should you become injured, all these things build into your preparedness, which empowers you, which makes you feel confident. That additional confidence, as you develop these skills and acquire the tools with which to perform them, builds your mindset again, where you go, well, my training is feeding into my attitude towards life. You're becoming a more positive, more assertive, more action-orientated person. And once people with that same mindset band together in a organization of sorts, whether it's formal or informal, they have the capacity to do immense good in society. We saw that mindset come alive in July as the people of Soweto stood up against chaos and destruction. And as people across the two provinces of Gauteng and KZN, over numerous metros and smaller municipalities, stood together against chaos and violence across racial, cultural, age lines. The mindset exists and it's very effective. But for people to, the first thing that needs to change for you to be safer in this country is your own attitude. And unless you change your attitude, you're not going to succeed in this. No matter how many guns you buy, no matter how much training you get.
Yeah, the story I wanted to mention, I didn't earlier, from 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, was the one of Lawrence Masinge, the guy who was doing a training online with his online trainees, and he was shot live during the Zoom session, shot dead, and the people who were attending that session were terrified, shocked completely by what happened. And these people, Gideon, they are not first-time offenders. I doubt very much that the guys who killed and executed Lawrence Masinge, these are first-time offenders. And this is the issue that is very concerning. Even the minister, a few years back, did point to, he was complaining about the justice system, which, by the way, he is part of. But he was complaining that these criminals, they are let go every now and then. They get released through bails and all that. These are not first-time offenders, Gideon, and that concerns me. Again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier, that we have a system that isn't punishing criminality so that people can think otherwise or think 3 times before they commit it.
That's exactly spot on. They are very seldom do you encounter first-time offenders. I mean, they do exist, but not for long, because they will offend now and then tomorrow they'll offend again. So it's an active decision these people make to become dangerous predators. It's not, I do not subscribe to the fact that it's purely economic pressure that causes this, because I know a lot of poor people who refuse to steal. I know a lot of poor, I don't buy it at all. I know a lot of poor, desperate people who are the least violent individuals in society, or among the least violent. So it's not purely poverty. I think a thing that sits close to your heart when I read your discussions and your writing, I definitely think the high level of fatherlessness in this country has a massive impact upon how young men develop, and the lack of direction, discipline, and empathy that they grow up with, that turns them into these psychopaths that are completely homicidal and narcissistic. The issue is, though, that is not going to be a quick fix. It's something that should be fixed. It's the same discussion I have with the feminists when they say, well, we should work towards a society where men do not rape. And I say, I agree 100% that is a great goal to have, and it's worthwhile to work towards. But you are referring to something that's going to require at least 2 to 3 generations to to change, to succeed in that cultural shift. And the reality is, I don't have 2 to 3 generations. My wife doesn't have 2 to 3 generations. Someone's daughter or mother doesn't have 2 to 3 generations. We need to have a meaningful, practical solution to this problem in the interim whilst we're pursuing the cultural change. There's no point in ignoring the fact that other things need to be done.
Yeah, and I mean, yes, sure, we can have those long-term, whatever, visions, solutions, whatever I want to call them, plans to change our society. That's fine. But for now, all I want is that we need to have an effective justice system, right? Okay, in an effective justice system, we need improvements there. But also what you campaign for, Gideon, self-defense, right? The change of attitude, learning guns and how to use guns to protect yourself. So things like that. So that's what I mean. We have a problem right now, and it needs to be removed from our society. And it's an urgent matter, and therefore it requires that we respond as speedily as possible. Those long-term plans, fine, let's pursue them, of course, and we should support them. I support them, but right now we need to deal with how do we remove this violent criminality. Crush it out without giving it any excuse. Because regardless of where we come from, whether we have the apartheid system, whether there are poor people from somewhere, no matter our socio-economic conditions, if we commit crime, you have to be punished. You see, there's no way of trying to justify and excuse you because, you went through this, you went through that. No. You cannot commit crime, assault, or kill other people. And we should be clear on that. Now, your thoughts on Bheki Cele. Some people are saying now we should get out. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's failing on crime. Is the issue him, or is it the whole thing is just a mess? Would removing him fix anything? And I'm talking about specifically the justice system. Would it help? And maybe do you have someone in mind? I mean, you probably follow these things and see personalities when it comes to law enforcement. Is there someone who could say, maybe this guy could do something about this? Tell me about that.
So there's definitely nobody in the ANC that would do a good job. So on Bheki Cele, yes, he has to go. Yes, he's terrible. Almost every single minister of police we've had before him was terrible. They all contributed to the incredible state of decline the South African police service is presently in, and it's circling the drain of its own existence. And in fact, and I believe that matters are so dire that I don't think it's unrealistic to say, well, within the next 5 years, there might not even be a SAPS because it will be that dysfunctional. For all intents and purposes, the police service would have ceased to exist. And this is due to contributions from Cele as national commissioner, and then he came back as the minister of police. He was one of the worst, most woeful national commissioners we've ever had, and he's certainly a terrible minister of police. I would replace him with someone like Andrew Whitfield from the DA, for example. I believe, like I have interacted with Mr. Whitfield. He is a intelligent man that understands these issues, and he's willing to consult with people who knows more than he does. And that is possibly Bheki Cele's greatest failing, is that his degree of hubris and arrogance, and the fact that he just steadfast refuses to engage with views and advice that runs contrary to his own dogmatic belief system. It's his way or the highway. That's why he is so. We have a wonderful word in Afrikaans for this called kragdadigheid. It is arrogant power drunkenness, where he's like that person at the whack-a-mole game in the arcade. Something pops its heads up. He doesn't care what it is. He just whacks it as hard as he can. We saw this behavior with the alcohol ban, the cigarette ban, his issue with people on the beach and surfers, the issue with guns that he has. Every couple of weeks, it's a new thing that he applies the same strategy for, which is like irrational, heavy-handed crackdown that he doesn't understand nor can he effectively implement. But The major problem is the South African police service itself is a dinosaur that shouldn't exist. It cannot serve the needs of South Africans, and its very model is doomed to failure. We needed a federalized system of policing in 1994 already. The system of centralized control over community policing and over policing itself, where bureaucrats in Pretoria make far-reaching decisions, it's irrational. I mean, the needs of Tzaneen pertaining to policing are not the same as Cape Town City Bowl, which is not the same as rural KZN or Eastern Cape, and it's certainly not the same as Port Elizabeth or a small town in the Northern Cape like Camus. It's to think that you can centralize such a diverse biosphere of policing needs into one office is madness. And that's why I'm saying I don't think it really matters who's Minister of Police, and I don't really think it matters who's the National Commissioner. It would be great to have competent people in there, but competent people would surely change this entire model into something that's far better suited for what we need in this country.
Mm. And what's happening with the is it called Firearms Control Act amendment that they were trying to put in place so they make it difficult for citizens to have access to guns? What's the progress on that?
So major progress this week. That bill has been postponed. It's been taken off the priority list by Parliament. And by the sounds of it, there's a lot more thinking, consulting, and back and forth that first needs to happen before it will even be considered. And I think it will probably disappear, and hopefully it will disappear for good, and that we've killed it. Civil society killed it. The reason why it's been postponed is because of the scale of public outrage about its contents. There were too many people who objected to it over too broad a space of civil society, and the pressure on government was just too high, and they had to walk it back and they had to fold. So now that we have this level of pressure on government, I'd say we'd have to maintain it and push forward and force meaningful reform. Because if you think about the system of firearms control in South Africa, so the police are the ones losing guns. They are the ones who are selling them to gangsters and criminals, confiscating them from gangsters and criminals and reselling them again. Their police stations are getting robbed, and they are not administering the system efficiently anyway. The CFR is in a complete mess. The central registry is an ocean of administrative failure. The entire system, the way to solve this is to redo the whole way we think of firearm licensing. The major proposal is you as the individual citizen should be the license holder, like you have a driver's license, and your firearms are just registered to your name, which means that you cut away 90% of the duplicated, inefficient administrative process, and that the SAP shouldn't be doing it anyway. So we've gotten this amendment bill that sought to disarm citizens, because I firmly believe that's what its intentions were. We've gotten that off the table for now, and we need to keep working to ensure it stays off the table, and that our suggestions for positive change are taken seriously and implemented.
Now let's wrap up here, Gideon, because we are out of time. It sounds to me, listening to you over the past almost 40 minutes now, is that you are saying you've lost faith in the governmental justice system, the police, courts, whatever you can call it, and that you are more advocating for people to change their attitude, to protect themselves, to learn how to use guns to protect themselves. Decentralization of policing, instead of having this one command, big police, national police enforcement. Did I summarize correctly?
Absolutely. And one thing I can add to that as a closing remark is focus on building alternative structures and infrastructure in order to make your community resilient. We are seeing great success in private prosecutions. We're seeing great success amongst communities from a community safety point of view who take an active interest in their own safety. The government isn't going to reform itself, and it's not going to be able to put this Humpty Dumpty back together that fell off the wall. So as opposed to obsessing about this broken egg, I suggest that we move on from it and look strongly for alternative solutions which already exist and that might need minimum amount of adaptation to work in our communities, and rather have those discussions, because those are discussions worthy of having, but they require people to stop deferring, or rather stop outsourcing responsibility for their personal safety to a third party like the government or private security, and take active ownership and responsibility themselves for it. And that's the difficult part.
Yeah. Now, quickly here, I wanna catch you. I wanna hear what you think here. This is a controversial debate, and Herman Mashaba has raised it because he says the levels of criminality, violent criminality, they are just shocking. The death penalty, capital punishment. Are you opposed or not opposed to it? And if you are opposed, why? I guess you are opposed, judging by your views, having listened to you. But I mean, why would it be? Why wouldn't? It wouldn't be helpful?
So here's my thing. I'm not opposed
for
to
very
it
violent criminality like murder and all that.
So I've got no problem with a violent murderer being executed, for example. I don't have a moral issue with that. My biggest concern with capital punishment, and it's always been a big concern for me, is the fact that I do not trust a government or a state with the power of putting people to death, simply because very often it might get it completely wrong. And I personally wouldn't want to be, after, for example, a successful self-defense intervention, and my attacker may have died, I would not enjoy the prospect of being wrongfully convicted by a hostile court, for example, and then sentenced to death for a murder I didn't commit. That is something that would concern me greatly. So I do not trust the state with that power or responsibility, but instead I think what would be a more effective deterrent is to empower citizens to take care of the problem themselves, not through vigilantism, but through justified, responsible, armed defense that is very effective. And if the criminal then ends up dead as a process because they picked the wrong victim, then I'm certainly not going to be crying about it, and I don't think many people will.
Yeah, no, it's a very interesting one. I've been conflicted for a while about the issue of the death penalty. But I mean, given what I'm seeing and where we are leaning, I'm beginning to slowly to think that to do not be as hostile to it. Because I think even if it's not like you just blanket it, it will be rare cases. You need to have stronger evidence. And with the current technologies of investigations, I doubt the errors will be as many as they used to be in terms of, wrongful executions or whatever. But it would need to be rare, extreme kind of violence that would need to be
absolutely
punished.
Absolutely.
You need to put very strict terms and conditions. Gideon, yes, you want to say something?
No, I agree. I agree with that. So, in essence, if I were forced to, if I were forced to live under a regime of capital punishment, then that's exactly, I think, the only way it would realistically work, is if it was reserved for the most heinous of crimes and criminals only. And
for example, Gideon, quick example, a gentleman, he slashed human beings. I don't know if it's human beings or a human being here in Soweto, slashed him into pieces or her into pieces and put the human body parts in the fridge. I mean, something like that in a democratic society. How does such barbarity exist? And this person will get off, Gideon. High chance he'll get off and continue to live a life.
That's it. So no, I do also empathize with your view as well, because I don't think a debate on capital punishment should be. I've treated it like as a black-white issue for a long time, and I don't think that's the right approach, because you make very good points as well, and I think that would make in itself a very good discussion, to be honest.
Yeah, but I mean, as you say, and I take your points, Gideon, that I mean, there are so many loopholes in our justice system. You will need to fix it first if you want to do such things effectively. You see, it needs an overhaul. Um, you would need to put those very, big terms and conditions for any capital punishment to take place. It has to be really heinous crimes. So you would need to. So I mean, it would be a huge change in our system. But I mean, at the end of the day, I largely agree with you. In fact, I agree. Not that I largely agree with you. I agree with everything you have said in this discussion, and I support your views and support your initiatives. I just hope next year you can sign me up to your program, and then I can be one of your clients who can teach me guns. I think that will
I
be
would love to. Phumlani would love to have you. It's a deal. It's a deal, brother, for
yes,
sure.
yes, yes. We'll definitely do it. Seriously, we'll definitely do it. Yeah, we'll definitely do it. Gideon, thank you so much, sir. It's been great to talk to you.
Awesome stuff. It was great speaking to you, Phumlani. You have a wonderful evening, and to all the viewers, thank you for tuning in. See you soon.
Fantastic. Thanks, Gideon. Sure. Bye.